to another edition of the Power Talks for Remarkable Females. And this is the last one for 2024. Thanks for being with us. It is a remarkable year-end period, a time for contemplation, a time for consciousness. And I am here today with a amazing and remarkable woman, Christine Ford. She is an energetic catalyst and psychic healer dedicated to helping conscious entrepreneurs and professionals to reclaim joy, authenticity, and harmony in their relationships with themselves, others, and their finances. While her intuitive gifts have been accessible to Christine since childhood, such as clairvoyance, mediumship, and the ability to work with energy, neural patterns, the DNA, and the Akash, she fully committed to her healing mission and serving others in a professional capacity in 2017. Christine has empowered clients to multiply their income, transform family dynamics, heal codependency, attract soulmates, and rediscover purpose and clarity. Her work centers on guiding clients to embrace heart-centered, soul-led life, empowering them to know their true worth, set healthy boundaries, and embody peace within, no matter life's external challenges. She's here with me to talk about conscious leadership and the communication that we can develop in order to build those conscious relationships around us. Welcome, Christine. I am super stoked to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me, Helena. It's a privilege to be on your show. I've been watching some of your other episodes, and you always have such an interesting guests and people that are just telling their stories in such unique ways. And it really tells us that like we have a lot to offer. And sometimes they're hidden gems and they're not always clear, but I feel like you're somebody who knows how to find that and elevate people into really showing up as they really are. And that's part of what we're talking about today as the authenticity in our conscious leadership.
Yeah, thank you for that, Christine. And it's not only your participation that matters, also for people that are watching this show live or listening in, you are more than welcome to send us your feedback, your questions, your remarks, anything that you want to share via the comments. Even if you are listening or watching this as a replay because you couldn't make it, then your remarks and feedback and questions are very welcome. We will monitor everything and get back to you. If you have not connected with me or Christine yet, then do so now. Do so on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, whatever channel is yours, in order to stay connected with us and, of course, with what we bring. Christine, conscious leadership. It is something that we see and read about more and more. And for many of us, it's the concept, right?
Yeah.
And with so many things, concepts are like dissociated from us. It's very difficult to embody them, to live them. So maybe we can start with a kind of definition. What exactly is conscious leadership and what is consciousness in general for those of us who are not really familiar with that terminology or concept?
Yeah, this is definitely like I would say it's like a new wave of being. And the crazy thing is that it takes everything that we have ever done in the ways that we think about how leadership is and the ways in which we lead, and it turns it on its head. And so that's why it's hard to grasp as like a single particular individual thing, because it's like a paradigm. So if you
Mm,
imagine a paradigm of this is just how parents and children are, and there's all these little nuances and all these little things that happen in the dynamic between parents and children, and the family dynamics, the first dynamic that we are born into. So it's the most familiar, which is why I'm relating to it. So it's this is just the way it is, but it's like that way because it's your worldview, or maybe it's your generation's worldview. And so what ends up happening is there's just patterns that end up getting created. And it's okay, so this is the consciousness of the family unit, and this is how it is for people in, say, the Western world. It's different in the Eastern world, actually. So that's interesting too. But what I would say, just in terms of, to bring it back to what's conscious leadership, it's looking at leadership from a completely different lens, which again is vague. So I'm understanding that we want to get deeper with this. So an example of conscious leadership could be like, I expect my employees to work 9 to 5. That's the more sort of, that's the old paradigm.
That's the rule. Well,
That's the old paradigm. I expect my employees to work 9 to 5 because that's how I know I'm going to get the output I want from my employees. And the same way that where parents and children are like, if I punish my child, then I will get a specific outcome from them because that's what I know to do. That's the old paradigm. The new paradigm says, what if we move away from time and energy as the main ways that we can get results and instead focus on more precision? And when I say that, I say, so there's precision in results. So if I focus on results instead of what I expect an output to be in order to get those results, then I'm having to like trust a little bit more. And that tells me that if I get uncomfortable with that, if I'm like, oh no, I don't trust my employees to get their job done unless they're working 9 to 5, which means that there's a part of you that doesn't fully trust in people's ability, like the people that you've hired, which is like problematic when you think about it, because trust of other people starts with trust in yourself. I trust myself to make good decisions on who to hire because I know they're going to get the job done. And I don't really care how many hours they spend on it. I care about what they promise
output, the outcome.
the outcome, the results, right? And so that's an example of like conscious leadership where you step into deeper trust of your employees, but you cannot do that until you fully trust yourself to make those decisions. So that's an example of conscious leadership. And that's very hard for people who really are seeking a sense of control in their role as the leader. I want to be able to control people. There's power plays that happen on a subconscious level. And those are the types of paradigms that need to be looked at and examined. And I don't say get rid of everything because I don't think it makes sense. I say look at everything and ask yourself, does it make sense still? And does it allow me to show up as the way I want to? Or am I tense all the time? Am I on the clock? And is my nervous system being sacrificed for this? And then as a result, are my employees anxious around me, walking on eggshells, checked out? Maybe they just quiet quit because they're like, I can't even deal with this person. They're just a micromanaging person and I can't deal with it. Like that doesn't elicit in me to create the best experience and to produce the best results. So that's an example.
Yeah. And I see that a lot. It is funny. I was talking to a leader client this week about what you are saying right now in terms of the whole system. The traditional corporate system is still based on what happened during the industrial era, where in the Ford factories of Henry Ford, people needed to start because the machines started to roll and they had to work constantly because these machines were rolling. And if not, they were like, you probably know this movie from Charlie Chaplin and by Charlie Chaplin. And so we are still in that in terms of we basically say the amount of hours you work, and even when you start and stop working equals output, which where we are in a world now, it's a knowledge society. We deliver knowledge, we deliver consulting, we actually even deliver connection. And so it is not about the hours, it is about the intensity and the quality of the connection, of the communication, and of the result. But because we don't know that, it feels like we don't really have the framework for that, because it is in ourselves, it is our own wisdom and our trust, like you say. A lot of us are very afraid to step into that new paradigm because there's no structure in that. And so if they are, as a leader, also judged or validated in terms of the outcome, most of us, we will try to do as much as possible within those rules. So at least we follow the rules, even if we don't have an output. And even if we make our team, because of a lot of control, because of a lot of rules, that
Mm.
basically don't make sense, we demotivate our team or we deplete our team, worst case, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So
And
how do you build that courage?
this is, to me, I feel like everything starts from the inside.
Mm,
And so the way that I would start, if I were to tell somebody who's maybe coming to me and asking me, like, how do I start to become more courageous with this? First of all, it's not going to be perfect. This is going to be messy. There's an experimentation process here. So you cannot expect perfection. And you have to jump into the process with both feet and say to yourself, you know what? I'm gonna throw some spaghetti against the wall and see how this goes and find my flow with it, because the thing is that every leader is different. Every
mm,
leader is going to have different skills and abilities and a wealth of previous knowledge and experience that they can bring to the table. That's, this is easy for me, this is easy for me, this is easy for me, but I got to learn these 3 or 4 other skills in order to really execute this in a way that allows me to deliver at the highest
mhm,
level. And you're always going to have that, because that's just part of being human. You're just going to continue to learn. So part of the courage is taking like the risk and recognizing, yeah, there's going to be some risk here. And also dealing with your fears of loss, dealing with your fears of scarcity, dealing with your fears of, if I do this, I might potentially lose something. And if you get hyper focused on that, you end up creating a self fulfilling prophecy. But if you focus on, I'll just give an example of my experience. When I was called to step into more conscious leadership in my business, what I found was, if I made a decision that I was going to follow my intuition, I'll just say it that way, and it was so wildly different than anything that my logical brain would tell me to do. It scared the heck out of me, for sure. But what I did notice, that over time, every single time I stepped out of that mm, comfort zone, right? And I let myself actually just try it without getting hyper fixated. And this is all my security. This is all my sense of validation. This is all my sense of worthiness. And a lot of that stuff plays into why we don't take risks, because it's
mhm.
like, I get validated for following the rules. Yeah, but rules never actually create anything new. They maintain what is. And
Exactly.
so that's fine if that's what you want to do, but you're not going to innovate from that space. You're not going to create anything new. And you can't expect to attract people who might create new things either, because that's the frequency you're going to be in predominantly. So, what
Mhm,
I have found that I had to do was really look at what ends up happening when I kind of color outside the lines a little bit here. What ends up
mm,
happening, and it's 9 times out of 10, yeah, things get challenged, I get freaked out, but I actually find that more abundance comes in, more wealth comes in, more opportunities come in. Even just being here on this talk, I could feel the intensity before I'm very energetically sensitive. So just coming from my perspective, I could feel how many people were going to watch this. I could feel how much impact it was going to have. And it like scared my system, right? I was like vibrating with like anxiety, but I was
mm,
also having some excitement. And so sometimes we have to play between the realm of anxiety and excitement and learn to lean into the excitement rather than run away from it because, oh, it feels uncomfortable and I don't want to feel uncomfortable. Sometimes discomfort is actually the key to us stepping into our next level. And that's what people say all the time about getting out of your comfort zone too anyways. So it's
mhm,
very common to hear this, but it's very difficult to actually carry it out. And especially where you've been playing it safe for a really long time. What I would do is if you're somebody who feels like you always play it safe, meaning you never feel uncomfortable, you always feel like you know what you're doing, you always feel like you're like the best at this, challenge yourself in that area. Where can I
exactly.
grow
Yeah,
here?
you're
Or
not growing. Yeah.
where am I always bad? Where do I suck? Like, where am I no good? Have you challenged yourself in growing in that area, or do you just avoid? Be
Yeah.
honest with yourself. Have honest conversations with yourself. And the thing is that when you start having honest conversations with yourself, you'll start having honest conversations with other people, where other
Oh,
people
yeah. Mm,
will feel like, oh, I can be honest with this person because they're not trying to hide all of their fears behind this pretense. And so
mm,
that creates more authenticity with your relationships as a result. So it's like
Yeah.
huge benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you said also about anxiety and excitement because they are actually very much related. Also, in the kind of body chemicals they produce, the differences or the differentiator is how we look at it.
Mhm.
It is a new event can be indeed like a source of anxiety, and it can be something if we trust, if we know our strengths, if we are connected with our strengths, it's a source of excitement and exploration and adventure. So our mindset does a lot. And I also like that you make the reference to your own business because I was talking about conscious leadership in the corporate context.
Mhm.
And conscious leadership is actually a concept that we can apply in every dimension, in every aspect of our lives. So it's not only executives that have conscious leadership, it's also entrepreneurs, it's parents, it's us as a society in how we deal with nature, in how we deal with climate, in how we are aware of what is our role and our impact on the world as such. That is also leadership because that is self leadership, but it is also leading change, leading innovation, and leading shifts and changing, like you say, new paradigms. And in that area, it's such a rich thing, and yet it's to me, and please, I'm very interested in your vision on that. It all comes down on the same, and that is having access to your inner wisdom and to your intuition.
Yeah.
Because you say, okay, I go to my inner wisdom, I go internally, and then I say, yeah, you're right. And a lot of people say, but I don't have that access. I don't know where it is. I'm so focused on the head, mentally, intellectually, making decisions and choices. How do you get access to that inner wisdom?
Yeah, I have a special case because I've been connected to this world since like I was a child. And so my job was learning how to be human, how to follow rules and like
Mm,
in order to break them basically, because you can't be a disruptor and play the game without knowing how the game works.
yeah. Mm,
But for the average person who's a little, I would say a lot of people are cut off from their inner wisdom because it's because of socialization. And when I look at that energetically and I like look at this sort of from an intuitive perspective, it's this is actually part of the path. It's not get rid of all socialization and forevermore be without it. It's learn how your soul came in at a certain point with certain sort of missions and lessons and things that it wanted to do. And so part of where you're born and the sort of circumstances you're in from a soul perspective, not necessarily from a human perspective, but a soul perspective is part of that growth and part of what you're meant to learn or bring your gifts to. Right. And
mhm,
when I say connect to your intuition, it's like children are naturally connected to their intuition. They know what they feel like. They can feel an emotion and they know that's just part of their experience. It's the adults in the room that judge the emotion because they're uncomfortable with the emotion. It's the adults in the room that judge the child's wisdom. Hey, I think there might be something off with grandma. Maybe I feel like there's something wrong. And the parent is like, no, I don't want to entertain that thought. Let me just deny that. No, you're just making that up. I don't want to hear it. That's energetically what the parent does to the child. And so what does the child end up doing is saying, oh, I'm not allowed to know things. I'm not
mm,
allowed to feel things because these threaten the person that is here to take care of me. And if it's their fear, then it should be my fear too. And so they learn to fear their intuition. They learn to fear their wisdom. And
mm,
so in order to open back up to that, you actually have to go back to the inner child. And that's why inner child work is so powerful for anyone. I would say, especially for somebody who's very much in their head, because that's
mhm,
a way of coping with the emotions. It's a way of coping with the insights or the downloads. So I would say like a blocked crown chakra, which is at the top of your head here, that's where all the wisdom drops in, right? And so it drops in, goes all the way through the energy body, hits the root chakra, which is like the physical world. And then that's when you can actually implement it, you can live it out, but it gets stuck. And so when I look at it, and especially if I'm doing work on somebody, I can see sometimes that their energy, when I put new energies or codes in and stuff, it gets stuck here in the crown. It doesn't go any further because their
mhm,
mind is fighting it because they're saying, this is not safe. And so accessing your intuition, accessing your wisdom, accessing even your body feelings is going to be really difficult until you feel that they are safe to trust, that they are safe to exist. And you don't need to like overreact or go into overreaction mode. It's not, it's more of a balance. It's okay, here's an emotion, here's anger. Since I had experience where anger was very bad. Anger means bad, and that's the inner child, right? That sounds like a child, right? but
Exactly.
but your system says this and still believes this to this day. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you can't express anger, if you can't feel anger, then it gets stuck inside of you. And then you become the person who gets walked on. You become the person who, anytime somebody else is upset, you get really uncomfortable and maybe you need to leave the room. It triggers you. And this is what I'm saying, that if you can entertain the emotion that you are fighting, you can entertain the insight or the wisdom that is coming in that scares you, that makes you uncomfortable, you're coming back to heal that part of you that was traumatized or hurt or and when I say traumatized, it could just be like my parent just pretended that this didn't exist or this didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen. And oh, you don't get allowance today because you didn't clean your room. Oh, I did clean my room, but no, but not to the way that I wanted you to do it. And then you become a perfectionist, right? And so see how these little things can like create bigger problems, and it creates mistrust with yourself. And so what I would say is that start looking at where you get uncomfortable. Go to the place that you are uncomfortable. Go to the place that you actively avoid. Do it in your journal. Do it through EFT tapping. There's so many modalities out there that you can use to help you feel these things all the way through. Because once they're no longer your enemy, no longer something that terrorizes your system, and you'll know it terrorizes your system because either you numb out or it really triggers you. Like you get all this sensation, or like you're just completely numb to it.
Yeah.
Both of them are a trigger.
It's interesting what you bring there, and I recognize that myself in terms of like inner child work and trauma work. A lot of us, and I had the same, I always said, I don't think I have to do work there because I have never had trauma, because I related trauma with something really severe and heavy. And now I understood that unconsciously and subconsciously, a lot of little things are like injected that are not big dramas and big traumas, but they do have a tremendous impact. That's what you're also saying. And even things that you feel like now conceptually or intellectually, yeah, that wasn't that bad. Of course, it's not bad, especially because most of our parents don't do things intentionally to harm us. It's because this is their framework. And we do that also. We make a lot of mistakes in that area, not only with our children, but just interactions in general. But being aware that this is basically something that all of us can explore and can work on. If we feel blocks, if we feel that things are not really aligned, if we feel that we lose energy, it's not because you didn't experience big traumas that you cannot experience big energy loss and other blockages that keep you from manifesting what you want and who you want to be. And that's an important one. That's also one that I learned. And I would like to people that are watching or listening to this to be aware of that you don't have to experience extreme trauma, with all respect for the people who have,
Of course.
in order to do inner child work and in order to go deeper exploring what it is that blocks you, because it is our energy fields, it is our subconscious that is blocking us. And it's sometimes with very simple interventions that you can change a lot and move forward a lot, right?
Exactly. It's such a powerful yet very simple seeming process. People say, well, what's breath work? Who cares? But you have no idea the impact it can have on your nervous system and on you. Just think about silent meditation retreats. Why are they so difficult? Because you have to deal with yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what
I
breath
have
work
them
does.
here. I have them here. 4 days stillness and solace, silent retreat. It's amazing how people are confronted with silence and the impact. And 4 days is like undoable for a lot of them if they don't receive the right context and support. Yeah, because you are alone with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, but the beauty is that you start to discover not just all of the things that are that scared you or that you've been running away from, you also discover the gifts because
Mhm.
our inner child has gifts to give us. The parts of ourselves, like that intuitive gift, for example, the ability to just feel. Like, does an infant not feel their emotions? Of course not. When an infant's not happy, when an infant is happy, when they're at peace, when they're aggravated, they're not shy about expressing it. But then
Yeah.
adults act like, oh, I'm so evolved and I'm so mature. But it's actually not that mature because it's coming from avoidance. If you can
Mhm.
actually be with your emotions, you'll know that you've made progress. If somebody can be around you who's in an emotion that you were really uncomfortable with, that now you don't feel that much about. In my example, anger was like a strong emotion that I couldn't really deal with. And
Mhm.
when I started to deal with that anger, people around me could be angry and it wouldn't trigger me anymore. It wouldn't set me on edge. It wouldn't make me anxious. It wouldn't set me off. I wouldn't have to leave. And so these sound like little things. How does that have to do with intuition? Your intuition is also comes through your emotional state. So your emotions can bring you information, right? Energy and motion. But I always look at an emotion as a gift. So what was what was the lesson? What was the insight that this emotion was designed to give me? And sometimes it's stuff like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. This doesn't feel good to me. Or it could be stuff like, I'm really scared of doing this thing, but like some part of me really wants to do it. Like I'm excited about it, but I'm scared. Don't pretend you're not scared. Don't pretend you're not angry. That's not going to do anything. That's just what the
Mhm.
parent does so that they don't have to deal with their children having a reaction to it. But if you could deal with your own inner stuff, the reaction won't have that impact and it won't
Mhm.
hit you in the heart and be like, oh, I can't deal with this. So connecting back to your inner child, connecting to all the parts that you left behind in childhood is the access point to your intuition, because the access point to intuition is what? Your imagination. So your imagination connects directly to your intuition. And it's actually one technique that I learned how to develop some of my psychic abilities when, as a clairvoyant, sometimes all I can see is like this sort of bunch of energy and it doesn't really have a form to it. And so what happens is I'm like, okay, let me use my imagination to help me connect the dots around what I'm seeing, what like make sense of what I'm seeing basically. And so that helped me big time. I was always very imaginative, so that was easy for me. But for some people who maybe have left their imagination behind because it was condemned in childhood or it was pushed aside and it wasn't honored, that's where you might want to do the work. Why am I afraid
Mhm.
of this part of me? What part of me am I going to get rejected for it? Some part of me feel rejected for it. It's very feeling based work, but this inner work is 80% of your results. Like 80% is inner work, 20% is physical work, is the way that I always see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that imagination part. Something that I very often do, and also I do with my clients, is guided visualization, or some call it imagery or guided meditation. And basically, it is supporting people to go inside in a very safe context, and by making suggestions in terms of where they are and what they can experience and what they can see in a completely imaginary world that you then can even amplify and activate, and they can really co-create it. They're like the director of their movie, and then they step into that movie and then they experience it. And every time I see that they lose complete connection with time, they don't know how long they were in the session. They are always extremely peaceful and happy and joyful because they were able to create something really beautiful, and they were able to create like a future vision. And it is the thing is that our brain, even if we imagine it, our brain reacts as if it is real. So we can absolutely trick our brain also in leadership if we want to achieve something, if we want to manifest it, by just imagining it time after time and play around with situations and events that happens and maybe challenges and difficulties that come into your story, but live through it and practice it, and create access with mythology, with metaphors, with archetypes. There's so many with angels and ancestors. There's so much richness in all these things that we can built in our internal worlds that can activate that imagination, that can also connect with that wisdom. That's how it works for me. I just love doing these things. Yeah, I guess you can recognize that. You can feel it probably when I'm
I
talking
feel
about
it.
it.
No, it's exactly it. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with art and I was obsessed with history and mythology. And then I became interested in the occult arts and just in terms of what's alchemy and what is all these things, what's astrology. And these were not necessarily like pillars of truth or something like that, but it was like my soul could speak through them. And I feel that our higher self speaks through anything that we put our attention onto if we allow it. That doesn't mean
Mm,
that the subconscious doesn't also use the same thing. But in terms of if you were to say, hey, you know what, I want to ask my higher self the answer to this question, like I want to know about this. I do this all the time. I would just say, hey, higher self, what should I do about this? Or what's the situation here? Or what's going on with this person? And I just get it dropped in. It just drops in. But there was a time where I would look around my world and I'd say, okay, let me look and see if there's anything about this. But when I dropped the expectation is when I got the real wisdom. When I was like striving and trying to get an answer that my ego wanted to hear, I would get like lots of validation for that. It would be like, oh yeah, here you go, here you go. And so you can get that. You can say, oh, focus on if you want a green car, you start seeing green cars all over the road. That's a very deliberate sort of intention. But if you put it into context of what is my higher self saying, I want to actually know what that is. Notice where you say, oh, it can't be that. Oh, there's no way. Oh, that's just silly. When you start saying that, when you start hearing those things in your head, pay attention because the universe doesn't give you, God, source, universe doesn't give you anything out of an accident. It's not an accident. It's intentional if you're intentional. But if
mm,
you're not intentional, you're just all over the place, then yeah, things are going to be a mixed bag and that will be relatively okay. That what do you expect? You go to a restaurant and you say, "Oh, just give me the best thing you got on your plate on your menu," and it's what does best mean? Like how can you specify, can you articulate what it is you're like? Do you like rice? Do you like pasta? Do you like steak? Because one person could walk in and say steak's the best thing, another person could say no, pasta's the best thing. So being specific about what you want is very helpful. And when you can go deeper beyond what your mind is telling you want, if you can sit with that inner child, if you can sit with the things that are coming up that you're afraid of, you'll start to get more clarity and more information that's accurate, I would say.
yeah. You say you had this connection with your higher self as a very easy thing because you are gifted. So, what can people do? Do you have a strategy or a process or a practice for people to activate that relationship, to get closer, to make it easier, accessible? What would you advise them?
Yeah, the biggest thing other than the inner child work is to look at your shadow, is to look at the things that you're afraid of. When the way that I see it is that if I assume that things that are coming in, there could be a fear here. If I assume that there could be a fear, then I'm going to work on that fear. I'm going to confront that fear. That's my shadow work. Okay.
Mm,
And then if I'm still feeling called towards the thing that's being presented to me, then that's probably more accurately my intuition. It gets a bit more nuanced as you go deeper with it because sometimes you could be calling something in and it's like literally coming from some longing that your parent had. And so it can get more complicated is what I'm saying, and that's where ancestral work can come in, and so you can go deeper with this. But just in terms of say somebody who just wants to start exploring this world and start connecting with this, look at the parts that you're afraid to look at. And what I would do in terms of connecting to your higher self specifically, get quiet. We talked about the silent retreat. We talked about the breath work a little bit here. Those activities, those types of things require you to sit in silence and not think about this, that, and the other thing. You literally have to let things go. And as soon as you can do that And it might take practice. For some people, it could happen. I can meditate and get information in under 10 seconds. But I used to need hours or weeks for this to happen, right? Because there was a lot of noise in my head too. And we all have noise in our head because we're hearing a lot of other people's thoughts. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's actually true. We are hearing a lot of people's thoughts. A lot of us can pick up on information and not realize where it's coming from. For me, I use it for my work, obviously,
Mhm.
and I use it with permission and very responsibly and very with consent and all of that. But if you're a psychic who picks up on everyone else's stuff, just beware that you're not invading somebody. But just in terms of connecting to your higher self, yeah, get really quiet. What is a quiet activity that like connects you to something deeper than just your mind? Maybe it's drawing, maybe it's painting, maybe it's knitting, maybe it's gardening. There's all these different things that you can do that preoccupies the mind and the ego a little bit so that the information that that connection to your higher self can start to open up a little bit more. And as it opens up, just notice where you get scared. Notice where you start to feel, oh, I don't really want to go there. I'm not ready for that. That's the mind trying to shut it down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's a lot of people who say, I'm high sensitive. I can sometimes be really overwhelmed by the energy of other people, but what indeed is entering my system. So what you say is you can really stop that or work with that by doing basically all things that involve the body, right? Because painting or playing or gardening are all things that are
There
putting
you
us in a certain action, and I would say in a creative action.
Yes,
Does that
because
make
your
sense?
creativity connects to your imagination, and guess again
Mhm.
where we go with imagination, that's your intuition. So it all leads in the right direction that you wanna go in. If you feel like you're the most uncreative person, get that thought out of your head right now. Everyone has some creative energy in
Mhm.
them because everyone has a sacral chakra, and that's your creation energy regardless of what body you were born into. Every single person has a sacral chakra is creativity, it's also intimacy, it's also connection, but it's connected to something more than just what your human mind will come up with, which typically likes to regurgitate stuff from the past like an AI.
I didn't think we would bring that up in here.
No. But
Unconsciously,
it's,
there's
you can use it to your benefit, right? It's not wrong. Are we saying that the mind is bad and wrong? No, of course not. It has
Mhm.
its place, and
Yeah.
it just can't lead the ship. But it's just not going to take us anywhere new. It's just going to drive us in a circle. And they're like, okay, like why are we driving in a circle? I don't know.
Yeah.
There was a show where
Because
they
our
just
ego wants to keep us safe in their definition of safety, of course. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And
Mm.
then that's okay. But like work with the part of you that feels unsafe. Work with the part of you that says, I can't do this. I'm not safe. How can you make yourself feel safe to go through this
Mm.
process? That's your job. But it's not someone else's job to make you feel safe by being less of who they are or by doing something that's out of integrity or out of character or not aligned with their own values. That's their business. Your
Mhm.
business is your own sense of safety. How do I make myself feel safe no matter what external circumstance is around me, no matter what is happening, no matter who's around me, no matter what other people believe or think or do, how can I decide right now to feel safe? And that
Mm.
might be a process that's unique for each individual
Yeah.
because my process would be like, I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to have a conversation with my inner child. Maybe I'll journal, say, okay, this is what I'm saying, like me as the adult, and this is what my inner child says. I say to the inner child, hey, what's up? Oh, I'm really uncomfortable because this person is doing this thing that I don't like. Why is it uncomfortable? Reminds me of what my dad did when I was 4. Okay,
Mhm.
let's go work with my 4-year-old now. 4-year-old me, what's going on? What do you need? I just really needed to be heard in this situation. And I felt like I was just totally shut down. Okay, can you tell me I'm going to be the adult now in the situation and you be the child? And now we're going to have a conversation. What do you need me to hear? What do you need me to be present with? Oh, I just need to know this. Okay, I'll do that. And I will be the parent that I needed at that time. And I
Mm.
don't judge the family members who maybe didn't do it the right way that I needed it, But at the same time, it's my responsibility to deal with what my inner child needs. And as I
Mhm.
do this, I become safer in my body because now my inner child has a secure, healthy adult that she can rely on, that she can depend on, that she feels safe to be herself around. And
Yeah.
so I basically solved the problem that I had. And now I have more depth of safety within myself without needing to change the world or control it or go outside and fix this and advocate for that. And I'm not saying don't do those things, but don't do it from the place of I'm not safe and I need to make this the external world safe so that I can feel safe. You got to go from the inside out, not the outside in.
That's beautifully said, Christine, and it's also very structured. I believe that we all can see how this works and how this dynamic and this interaction works. And thank you for sharing that. I do believe that sometimes it can be very hard to do this on your
Mhm.
own. I know
Yeah,
it's your job, it's your responsibility, but I guess sometimes it's also good to find help to do this.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Please don't try to do this alone. Shadow work is very confronting, especially if you're new to it. You can start with books on like how to do shadow work. There's YouTube videos out there that you can get free resources around. There's so much out there now that exists. Like I was talking about the EFT tapping, like there's thousands of those videos. You could literally start a daily EFT tapping practice on how to feel safe in your body again. That's just one way. And then, of course, look at bringing somebody in to support you who you feel like gets it and could help you and you have a resonant connection with, or maybe
Mhm.
somebody who you're referred to, whatever, however you make those decisions. But don't try to do it all alone if it's really overwhelming and it also feels maybe it's not in your wheelhouse. This is totally my wheelhouse. So of course I'm going to say it this way. But if it's
Yeah.
not your wheelhouse and you're like, I'm a CEO, I'm running a business, I don't really have 10 hours a day to sit and do my healing work. But if,
Mm.
but if you're in a membership community or if you're working with a coach or a healer or somebody, could you allocate a couple of hours a month where this could
Mhm.
be worked on? Take
Yeah.
it bit by bit. Don't overwhelm yourself. And I do find that sometimes that's what happens. And then it pulls people out. It's like when you go to the gym after a long hiatus and you're like, oh, I tore my shoulder in the first week. Were you lifting the heaviest weights? Maybe something you lifted 10 years ago? Duh, like you got to work up to it. Treat it like a workout because it is a workout. It is work.
It is a marathon, not a sprint, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. You got
Yeah.
it.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Christine, do you have resources for that? Do you have like ways where people can find what you do there as a kind of support? Yeah.
Yes. People can reach out to me and be directed to things. Like I have a lot of content online and stuff like that. And the main place that I'm focusing my energy right now is in my membership group. And so my membership is specific for personal development, relationship healing and growth, and also can connect you back to those spiritual things such as the intuition and so on and so forth. I do a lot of that in the membership group, which you can reach out to me. It can be a high intensity place, so I might be doing like another tier of it where it's a little bit lower intensity, the energetic wellness membership light. um, yeah, I need like a light version. But yeah, that's what I'm doing right now, and that's where I'm focused right now. So
Yeah.
that's where I would direct people to find more information. But if you want to have a conversation and just reach out and you want specific recommendations, you want to have a little bit of a chat, I'm open to that. And I can make sure that we have links for that as well if need
Yeah.
be.
No,
So,
wonderful. I will make sure that all the links are in the comments below in on LinkedIn and on YouTube in the show notes because really I can imagine that if this is new to you, that this is like a
mm,
little bit like where do I start?
yeah,
I'm intrigued, I'm fascinated, but where do I start? And that's also why I believe it is good. It's also my own experience that working with a coach that is specialized in shadow work and inner child work
yes.
is a tremendous, I would say, booster
Yeah.
in many ways to go deeper, to go faster. and to get the support that you need.
Absolutely. Just at this moment, just reach out to me on privately on Instagram. That's just the best
Mhm.
place right now. And I know that sounds general, but it's really the best place where you're going to be able to
Yeah.
have a
Okay.
conversation.
Some, I don't know, some last advice or anecdotes that you could share with us while we
Yeah.
have you here?
I mean, what we've talked about today, I know we talked a lot about how to be authentic, how to connect to boundaries and all these things that was we posted that a little bit about that. How does this connect to leadership? It's the core. It's when I look at an illness or I look at a condition, I'm like, okay, this is like the symptoms. This is the impact that something else, some hidden element has had. What is the hidden element? And when you start doing inner child work, when you start doing shadow work, when you start to sit with yourself and sit with all the parts of you that say, I don't want to look at that. I'm scared. I'm uncomfortable. I'm this, I'm that. When you can start to do that and just start the process slowly, it starts to open you up to, oh, I understand myself now. I know why I do that. I know why I feel that way. And when you can understand why you do a thing and you're like, and you can start to recognize like, why did I do this thing? It made me feel safe in this situation. So what do I really need? I needed to feel safe. I needed to feel like I was powerful, not powerless. I needed to feel like I was capable, not incapable. All of these things, those things are the basis of this work. And so when you feel powerful, when you feel genuinely capable, when you feel you can be honest and authentic about who you really are, when you feel safe to be seen, all of these things will have this massive ripple effect on your finances, on your company, on your relationships with your employees, with your everyone that you work with, your family members, your romantic relationship, everything. This is the basis because I don't feel like it's useful to just go to the symptom because, okay, great, you have a symptom. Oh, I'm having these fine. I saw a story the other day and it was like this woman was saying, I made $200,000 or something like that. And I was just like, but I lost it all. And I just thought, but you didn't go deeper to this issue. What was the deeper issue? What part of you is afraid of holding money? And it's again, it's not judgment. It's just recognizing I'm like, I know what that feels like because I actually had to heal my own version of that. And so when I've gone through those experiences and I've connected to what is the core essence here? Why did I not feel safe? Why was this not okay for me? Why was I judging this? Or what part of me felt unable to hold this? Again, and this happens with romantic relationships too. It's like, why do I not feel safe once I'm 6 months into a romantic relationship? What happened? And when we can go deep into these things, we start to clean up the energy. And when we start to clean up the energy, we can come in with a canvas, a blank canvas to create something new. But you can't
Mhm.
create something new when you have all this old stuff in your closet. You got to
Exactly.
empty
Mhm.
it out and just own it. Okay, cool. I got some stuff. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with it. We all have stuff. And
Yeah.
if we can go there with ourselves, we can go there with other people. And we don't have to go there with other people, but we can actually be present with them going through their stuff without getting entangled or trying to
Yeah.
fix them or trying to save them. It's like
Mhm.
all of that stuff goes out the window because now you're like, oh, okay, I'm just being here and I'm being here with me and I'm being here with them and I'm being here with whatever situations in front of me and it's okay. And that's the first step. You want to accept it. Then you can make the change. You can't make the change until you've stopped fighting yourself or ignoring yourself.
Beautiful wisdom and a beautiful one to end this session. We can go on. I know that, and I feel very tempted to have a go deeper session a little bit later, maybe to, in 2025 to really, dig deeper in this higher self or dig deeper in the inner child. But it all turns, if we're talking about consciousness, if we're talking about conscious leadership, it all is like you say, it is basically what is going on in what has been covered and active in our unconsciousness or in our subconsciousness that we need to work with in order to become conscious leaders. We cannot keep these things uncovered. We cannot be like false comfortable with leaving them where they are because we feel if we don't touch it, nothing will happen, because things do have their impact a lot in terms of flow, in terms of joy, in terms of connection. So it is, I think it's a beautiful thing for 2025 to do, right?
Absolutely. Consciousness is the
Consciousness.
future because consciousness is awareness. It is
Exactly.
being aware of the hidden elements, of the things that
Mhm.
you have been hiding from yourself for decades, maybe, or that other people have hidden from you, but that you've said, oh, it's okay that you hide this from me because I don't really want to know it, because I'm scared, because I'm uncomfortable, because I'm this, that, and the other thing. And we're dealing with those stories. And then as soon as we start dealing with the stories, it gets intense. And so, yeah, get the help, get the support, get the tools. There's so many
Mhm.
out there now. And this is possible, is I really want to leave people with, that this is
Mhm.
possible. This isn't just some sort of woo-woo sort of thing happening out there, has nothing to do with me. It's like you're part of this world and the evolving consciousness of this world. You're either going to go along, you're going to go with it, and it's going to lead you on this stream of expansion, or you're going to deteriorate and regress. And so you always have a choice, and no one's forcing you to make a choice, but eventually you're going to have to own that choice.
Mhm. Yeah. And you can make that choice every day. You can build up that courage day by day, step by step. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. No pressure. Take it as you need to and take your time with it.
Beautiful. Christine, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your amazing energy. Thanks for all your wisdom and your encouragement also to access it and to live a more full and complete life. And I'm only looking forward to receive information and feedback from people that watch this and watch the replay and that have started on this path and have felt the impact and how it shifts their life and how this consciousness is becoming something essential in their being, actually. I wish everybody a lot of consciousness, a lot of inner child work and play. And yeah, I can't wait to see how that impacts the world. Thank you so much, Christine. It was such a pleasure and honor to have you and to be with you again in your energy. Wonderful. Much
Thank
love.
you. Thank you.